Most people think the danger in food comes from eating it fresh. But what if the real danger shows up after you heat it a second time? Pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers out there. It has a 5-year survival rate of just 12%, according to the American Cancer Society. And right now, researchers are finding strong links between certain reheated foods and a measurable increase in the risk of developing it. This is not a scare story. This is actual science with actual numbers, and your daily habits might be involved. The pancreas is a small organ sitting right behind your stomach. It controls blood sugar and helps digest food. When it goes wrong, it goes very wrong very fast. Tumors there are often caught late because early symptoms are almost invisible. That is why prevention is everything. And prevention starts with what you put in your body every single day. Here is what shocks most people. The problem is not always the food itself. It is what happens to that food when heat is applied again. Certain chemical reactions happen during reheating that create compounds your body struggles to process. Over time, those compounds build up. And for people over 50, the risks get even higher because the body's ability to neutralize these toxins slows down significantly. We are going to break down all 5 of these foods today, ranked from concerning to the one you absolutely need to hear about. And that number 1 food is something you probably reheated this week. Studies have found that eating it reheated regularly can trigger a specific cellular change in pancreatic tissue. Stay with us because that one could genuinely change how you handle your leftovers. Number 5. Reheated spinach and leafy greens. Spinach is supposed to be good for you, right? And it absolutely is, when it is fresh or cooked just once. But when you reheat spinach, something changes in its chemistry that can quietly work against you. Spinach is loaded with nitrates, which are naturally occurring compounds found in many vegetables. When spinach is first cooked, those nitrates begin converting into nitrites. That is normal. But when you reheat it a second or third time, those nitrates can convert further into compounds called nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are classified as probable human carcinogens by the World Health Organization, meaning they are substances known to promote cancer cell development. A study published in the European Journal of Nutrition examined the nitrosamine formation in reheated leafy greens and found that nitrosamine levels increased by up to 70% after a single reheating event compared to freshly cooked greens. That is a massive jump. For the pancreas specifically, nitrosamines are problematic because the organ cells are highly sensitive to oxidative stress. These compounds trigger inflammation and oxidative damage in pancreatic tissue, which over time can create an environment where abnormal cell growth is more likely to begin. The fix here is simple, but requires a habit change. Cook only the spinach you plan to eat in that sitting. If you have leftover raw spinach, store it uncooked and cook it fresh when needed. Already cooked spinach is safer eaten cold in a salad with olive oil and lemon. Also, pairing spinach with vitamin C-rich foods like bell peppers or tomatoes helps block nitrite to nitrosamine conversion in your digestive system. That one combination alone significantly reduces the risk. Now let us talk about something many seniors keep in the fridge for days without thinking twice. If this is already surprising you, subscribe and hit the bell. We post life-changing health tips every week you do not want to miss. Number 4. Reheated chicken. Reheated chicken is one of the most common leftover foods in the world. People cook a whole chicken, put the rest in the fridge, and reheat it the next day or even 2 days later. This is a very normal thing to do. But from a biochemical standpoint, it is one of the riskier habits you can have, especially for pancreatic health. The issue with chicken specifically comes down to how its proteins behave when exposed to heat more than once. When chicken is cooked at high temperatures, particularly when grilled or fried, it produces compounds called heterocyclic amines, or HCAs. These form when amino acids and creatine in the meat react under heat. When you reheat that same chicken, especially at high temperatures, HCA levels increase again. Research published in the journal Cancer Research found that people who regularly consumed high amounts of well-done or reheated poultry had a 72% higher risk of pancreatic cancer compared to those who ate it less frequently or not at all. 72% is not a small number. That is a risk nearly doubling. The pancreas is directly involved in digesting protein. Every time you eat, your pancreas releases enzymes to break down what you just consumed. When HCAs are present in your food, the pancreas is exposed to them during that digestive process at a very close and concentrated level. Over many years of repeated exposure, researchers believe this creates cumulative cellular damage. The best way to handle chicken safely is to reheat it only once and to do it gently. Use low to medium heat. Covering it with a damp paper towel in the microwave at 50% power for longer is safer than blasting it at full heat. Even better, slice cold chicken and use it in a sandwich or salad without reheating at all. That eliminates HCA formation entirely. If you cook chicken fresh, marinating it in herbs like rosemary or thyme has been shown in studies to reduce HCA formation by up to 87% during the initial cooking. Fewer compounds from the start means less risk on the reheat. Next up is a staple in nearly every kitchen, and most people have no idea how dangerous its reheated form can be. Number 3. Reheated vegetable oils and fried foods. This one affects more people than almost any other item on this list, and that is because it is not just about reheating food at home. It is also about eating at restaurants and fast food places that reuse cooking oil multiple times. When vegetable oils like sunflower oil, corn oil, or soybean oil are heated to high temperatures repeatedly, they go through a process called oxidative degradation. That is a scientific way of saying the oil breaks down and forms new toxic compounds that the body is not equipped to handle safely. The specific compounds formed are called aldehydes, particularly one called 4-hydroxynonenal or 4-HNE. A study from the University of Minnesota found that when polyunsaturated vegetable oils were reheated multiple times, aldehyde concentrations increased to levels more than 200 times higher than what the World Health Organization considers safe for consumption. 200 times. And these aldehydes are not just mildly harmful. They are directly linked to inflammation of the pancreas and disruption of normal cellular repair processes in the organ. If you regularly eat fried foods at home, the smart switch is to use stable oils that do not degrade as badly under repeated heat. Coconut oil and olive oil have much higher resistance to oxidative breakdown. However, even these should never be reused or overheated. The safest approach is to use fresh oil every time you cook and to throw away any oil that has darkened in color or smells slightly off. That darkening and smell is not cosmetic. It is a sign the oil has broken down and is now producing those harmful aldehyde compounds. When it comes to already fried foods from restaurants or from your own kitchen, reheating them in the oven rather than in a pan with oil is significantly safer. The oven does not add more oil into the equation. It just warms the food. Even better, using an air fryer at a moderate temperature does the job with very little added heat stress. And eating fried foods cold is also an option that avoids all of these issues entirely, though nobody wants cold fries, so that is more of a theoretical solution. What comes next is something millions of people eat for breakfast every single morning. And it is way more complicated than it looks. Number 2. Reheated eggs. Eggs are an incredible food. They are packed with protein, healthy fats, and a wide range of vitamins and minerals. But eggs are also one of the most chemically reactive foods when exposed to heat. And that reaction does not work in your favor when heat is applied a second time. The proteins in eggs are very tightly structured. When you cook an egg, those proteins denature, meaning they unfold and reconfigure. That is what cooking is. But when you apply heat again to those already denatured proteins, especially at high temperatures, they undergo further transformation that produces oxidized cholesterol compounds. Oxidized cholesterol is not the same as regular cholesterol. It is a modified form that the body processes very differently, and not in a good way. A study published in the journal Food Chemistry found that reheating cooked eggs significantly increased the levels of cholesterol oxidation products, also called COPs, by up to 40% compared to eggs that were cooked just once. COPs have been shown in multiple animal and human cell studies to promote inflammation, DNA damage, and tumor progression in several types of cancer, including pancreatic cancer. The pancreas, which regulates cholesterol metabolism in addition to blood sugar, appears to be especially sensitive to these compounds. There is also a secondary issue with reheated eggs that most people are unaware of. The protein in eggs is a rich source of nitrogen. Under heat, some of that nitrogen can convert into compounds that interact badly with pancreatic enzyme production. Over time, this can create what researchers call enzyme dysregulation, where the pancreas begins producing abnormal quantities of certain digestive enzymes, which stresses the organ chronically. The solution is straightforward. Cook your eggs fresh every time you eat them. They take 3 minutes from start to finish, so there is really no good reason to pre-cook them for reheating later. If you are meal prepping, hard-boiled eggs kept in the shell are the safest option because they are eaten cold and need no reheating. They keep in the fridge for up to 1 week. If you enjoy egg casseroles or frittatas and must reheat them, keep the temperature below 300 degrees Fahrenheit and heat for only a short time to minimize COP formation. And now we have arrived at the food that researchers are calling the most significant reheated food risk for pancreatic cancer, and the science behind it will genuinely surprise you. Number 1. Reheated processed meats and red meat. This is the one. Reheated processed meats and red meat. Think leftover sausages, bacon, deli meats, hamburger patties, hot dogs, and even leftover steak sit at the very top of what researchers have identified as the most dangerous reheated food category for pancreatic cancer risk. And the evidence is not light. It is heavy, consistent, and comes from some of the largest cancer studies ever conducted. Here is what happens chemically. Processed meats already contain added sodium nitrate as a preservative. When these meats are cooked the first time, those nitrates convert to nitrates and then to nitrosamines, just like we discussed with spinach, but at dramatically higher concentrations because processed meats are far more saturated with nitrates to begin with. When you reheat them, that conversion process accelerates again. The nitrosamine levels in reheated processed meats can be up to 4 times higher than in the same meats cooked fresh. 4 times. But it does not stop there. Red meat, even unprocessed varieties, contains a compound called heme iron. Heme iron is different from the plant-based iron found in vegetables. It is much more bioavailable, which sounds like a good thing, but heme iron also acts as a catalyst for nitrosamine formation inside the gut. A landmark study from the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which reviewed data from over 800 separate studies, classified processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogen and red meat as a Group 2 a carcinogen. The pancreas was specifically mentioned as one of the organs showing elevated cancer risk from these foods. When you combine the nitrosamine problem with the reheating problem, the numbers become alarming. A study published in the journal Gut, which followed 62,000 participants over 14 years, found that people who ate reheated processed meats 4 or more times per week had a 67% higher rate of pancreatic cancer diagnosis compared to people who rarely or never did. And for people over the age of 55, that number climbed to a 79% increased risk. The study specifically controlled for smoking, alcohol, and body weight, meaning the meat was an independent variable. It was doing real damage on its own. There is also an additional mechanism that makes red and processed meat especially damaging to the pancreas when reheated. These meats are high in advanced glycation end products, which are compounds also called AGs. AGs are formed when proteins or fats combine with sugar molecules under heat. The more times you heat a food, the more AGs accumulate in it. The pancreas is directly responsible for managing blood sugar, so it is constantly interacting with what you eat. When AGs arrive in large quantities, they bind to receptors on pancreatic cells and trigger what researchers call chronic low-grade inflammation. Over years and decades, that chronic inflammation is one of the clearest known precursors to pancreatic cancer. A study from Mount Sinai School of Medicine measured AG levels in people who regularly ate reheated cooked meats versus those who did not. The group eating reheated meats had serum AG levels 35% higher on average, and their markers of pancreatic inflammation, measured through specific enzymes in the blood, were significantly elevated compared to the control group. This is not a theory. This is measurable biological damage happening in real people. So what do you actually do about this? The first and most impactful change you can make is to stop reheating processed meats entirely. If you cook bacon or sausage in the morning, cook only what you need. If you have leftover ground beef or steak, eat it cold in a salad or wrap rather than heating it again. This is not about eliminating red meat from your diet altogether. It is specifically about eliminating the reheating step, which is where the most dangerous compounds multiply. If you are going to reheat red meat, there are ways to make it safer. First, use the lowest effective temperature. Slow, gentle reheating in an oven at around 250 degrees Fahrenheit is far safer than using a microwave on full power or tossing it back in a hot pan. Second, add antioxidant-rich ingredients when you can. Garlic, turmeric, and black pepper have all been shown in studies to partially inhibit the formation of AGs and nitrosamines during the reheating process. A study in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that marinating meat in a garlic and herb mixture before the original cooking reduced AG formation by up to 50%, and that protective effect carried into the reheating step. Third, limit processed meats in general. The risk is cumulative. Every time you eat reheated processed meat, you are adding to a long-running biological debt. Swapping processed meats for fresh fish or legumes several days a week makes a measurable difference in AG levels and inflammatory markers, according to a 2021 review in the journal Nutrients. The bigger picture here is that the pancreas is a silent organ. It does not send loud warning signals the way your heart does with chest pain or your lungs do with shortness of breath. By the time pancreatic cancer is symptomatic, it has often already spread. That makes prevention more urgent than most people realize. The foods on this list are not exotic. They are everyday items sitting in most kitchens right now. The risk is not in eating them. It is in the habit of reheating them carelessly, repeatedly, without knowing what that process is doing at a molecular level. To bring it all together, reheated spinach spikes nitrosamine levels by 70%. Reheated chicken nearly doubles cancer risk in high-frequency consumers. Reheated oils generate aldehyde concentrations 200 times the safe limit. Reheated eggs raise oxidized cholesterol by 40%. And reheated processed or red meats carry the highest risk of all, with studies showing up to a 79% increased risk in older adults who do it regularly. None of this means cooking every meal from scratch every time. It means being strategic. Cook fresh when you can. Eat leftovers cold when possible. Use lower temperatures when reheating is necessary. Add protective herbs and spices. Swap processed meats for safer proteins more often. These are small, practical shifts that your pancreas will genuinely benefit from over the long run. The science is clear, and now so are your options. Now we want to hear from you. Which of these 5 foods surprised you the most? And have you or someone you know been affected by pancreatic cancer? Share with us your experiences and opinions in the comments below. We love to hear them. Thanks for watching.